he just had a moment in life where he said, okay, it's time to sell. And myself and Bobby Smith and 3 other guys bought the business. And then it was like, okay, we're off to the races.
So in 2005, we pushed Rob out of that nest. And it was a scary time because it was like, wow, this is in the uncharted, but chaos, bring it on. We love it. We're not going to let this fail.
Typically what we try to do is pair an emerging entrepreneur with somebody who's already made it. But tonight, we're very excited to have 2 accomplished entrepreneurs who really have made it in the construction field, in the field of architecture. Mike Huseman, on your left, is the CEO of Huseman Group, a Cincinnati-based collection of commercial construction companies that includes HGC Construction, you see their signs everywhere, SSRG, Trade 31,
Stanton Millworks, and Stewart Ironworks.
Together, they are known for transforming the built environment in our region and beyond. A 3rd-generation leader, Mike blends legacy with forward-thinking innovation, championing sustainable design, adaptive reuse, and bold construction solutions. Under his leadership, Huseman Group has grown significantly and played a central role in shaping some of the region's most impactful projects, all while cultivating a strong people-first culture. Ron Novak, welcome Ron, is the founder and principal of Drawing Department, an award-winning architecture firm based in Cincinnati. Known for his contextual design approach and thoughtful collaborations, Ron's work spans commercial developments, hospitality spaces, and high-end residential homes. With standout projects like Soto, Revel, and Brown Bear Bakery, he brings a deep appreciation for detail, for storytelling, and how great design can shape how we live, gather, and experience our region. Ron is an advocate for community-focused architecture and has been recognized for his contributions to the field. He continues to influence the architectural landscape through innovative and thoughtful design. Welcome to you both. So we're here tonight really to kind of just learn about their stories. So, there's no better place to start than at the beginning. So we're going to kind of bat this back and forth, guys, and start with your professional journey. How did you each get started in construction and architecture, and what are some of the early turning points that led you to where you are today? Maybe we'd start with Mike.
Appreciate the opportunity to share kind of my little story here. And I also think I haven't made it yet. I'm like still working on it, so nose to the grindstone, keep growing and zigging and zagging. That's part of the thing here. So I really don't feel like I live up to this. But how I got here, I think when Mark asked the question earlier, I had to think because it's led off with a 3rd generation. And so being G3, I was never raised to go into the construction world. My grandfather had a construction company. My dad worked for him on that side of the family. My mom's side of the family was an engineer at Hillenbrand, executive at P&G for the Kentucky gang. Von Lehmans are all tied into my family. So I was raised to be like a lawyer, accountant, business. So construction really wasn't on the radar. So grew up, worked summers on the job sites, but I was always hustling, like cut grass, and like if it snowed, I saw dollar signs because that meant I'm going to go shovel driveways and then go sledding. Always worked in restaurants, just busy, go. And my degree I got from Xavier, which didn't really lend to construction, although I have done work at UC to sharpen those skills. But my path was Xavier, and I didn't know if I wanted to go to law school, teach business, because I had a minor in business, and worked for the family business for like a year or two after college, and it was a small business, and I just was not getting the whole family business vibe. Like, you know, I love my grandpa, love my dad, but just the thought of siblings and cousins and this pie cannot be split that far. And at that point I had mentally checked out, and me and a buddy of mine were building houses on the side and doing other things. So I asked my dad, well, what's my future here? And he was like in his 50s, and he couldn't answer that question because I think he hadn't thought about his own future. And I said, well, I'll leave and go off and do my own thing. And he's like, okay, good, have fun. You know, we're connected. So I did, and you're in your 20s and you're like, go, jump off any bridge, do whatever. And so was doing construction work, oddball things. And then there was a TV show back in the day called 30 something. And it was about two dudes that worked in an advertising agency. And I was like, that is cool shit. What am I doing in construction? This is really creative and fun. So I got a job at Norfolk Stolly Lawari as an assistant account manager, and now it's NSL. And I was, you know, you talk about Montessori learning by doing. It was incredible what I learned on the power of the brand and what P&G and its reputation. Like my grandfather's company, it's quality reputation, but the effort to put behind a brand and reputation and what that can do for any business. I was on, at that time they owned the Folgers account, but the Crest business, I mean, Tide. Then they ventured into some Senco nail products, but it was the power of the brand really stuck with me. And so later on, my dad called. I was 29, and he said, hey, a guy's retiring. Would you be interested in coming back? And I was like, well, what's the future like? You know, what's ownership? And he goes, well, I promised ownership to 4 other guys, but you know, if you want in, you can do what you want, and you can take it wherever you want to go. And I was like, well, cool, that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to be able to create a path and grow. And so hop back in the company. And actually one of my original partners is here, Bobby Smith. He knows the days. It was 2002, my dad, when I came back, we were like in go, bro mode. And I was kind of replacing my dad's business. And we were starting to get some tension on, I wanted to grow the business. He wanted to retire, didn't want to take risk, and I was contemplating a second jump. And he just had a moment in life where he said, okay, it's time to sell. And myself and Bobby Smith and 3 other guys bought the business. And then it was like, okay, we're off to the races. Let's get this thing going. So 2002, it was one company. It was HGC Construction. It was $7 million in revenue. The year we finally made the bottom of the business career list. We had a big party. We were like, yes, we've arrived. We're on the list. And along the way, I've created other companies and businesses. And so just, you know, the power of reputation and doing things right and being consistent is kind of how I got here today. So.
That's a great story. Thanks, Mike. Fantastic. Ron, what about you? Your early beginnings and how you got to where you are.
Well, thanks for having me tonight. I thought a lot about this, and it's pretty serendipitous, I think. I think back to when my mom and dad were like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I can go back to when I was like 5 or 6, and I can say, I want to be an architect. I'm going to be an architect. I was telling people back then that I was going to be an architect. And it's probably due to the fact that I grew up with the game of life, and your choices was to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an architect. So I chose the architect bit. But so just because I didn't want to cross-examine people too much, and I can't dissect somebody. But that led to the fact that when I look at it and like, why did I choose architecture to sort of chase? It's probably because I thrive on chaos. Like, I love chaos. I like throw everything at me and I'll take it and I'll try to usher whoever wants to come with me to the goal or to the end. So architecture really represents something that is the shapeshifter, and it deals with your heart, your head, people and places, a whole bunch of things. So I kind of followed that along the way, and there were individuals, my family included, that got me to this point. But I can think back to college, and my first job was in Mansfield, Ohio. And I was blessed to work in a firm that didn't have me just at a desk picking up red lines or somebody else's mistakes or my mistakes, but they let us draft, but we spent half the time in the field building things. So I really learned like how to make things and how to solve problems. And I spent 4 quarters of my 8 co-ops from University of Cincinnati in Mansfield working on Main Street programs and like the Ohio State Reformatory and learning from a wonderful fellow named Dan Seckel. And he told me the first day I was there, don't let college get in the way of your education. And I live that every single day. It's just, I think back to him, and he was so formative for me to like become fearless that led me to another job here in Cincinnati, which was for a firm up in Mount Adams that did super high-end residential. And that fellow, John Sennhauser, it was a wonderful job. He taught us everything we needed to know about following through, being rigorous, being sort of Germanic about it, and like holding your work and your word in the highest esteem. But I met a fellow there who's in the audience, and his name is Rob Bush, and we're partners in drawing department with Yvonne, who's sitting next to him. It really, when I met him, he unlocked it for me. I don't know how to say it other than he showed me to have great empathy towards somebody who has never been through this process of turning over their house or their business or their building to you to destroy it and then make it back. And so you have to be a good listener. You have to be a bit of a psychologist. You have to be a bit of a transcendentalist, a historian, an engineer, an artist, all these things. But I met him and everything was sort of made sense at that point. Like we could do anything. So inevitably I graduated, I moved away for a year just because I had to go see something else. I was in Cincinnati and in Mansfield, in Ohio for my whole life. So I was like, let's go south. So I went to down south, had a great job, but the phone rings one day and it's Rob. He's like, I want you to come back to Cincinnati and do this thing. So I did. But while I was in Atlanta, I met my wife, who's my biggest critic and my best client. And she tells me, to see the forest through the trees. But again, like these turning points, I think we worked for John for a while. And then we were like, are we going to do this drawing department thing? And it was her that said, okay, listen, now is the time. I can see it in you guys. You have this. You can do this. You're good advocates for people. You're good listeners. You can execute things. And you don't execute your ego. You listen to people. So in 2005, we pushed Rob out of that nest. And it was a scary time because it was like, wow, this is in the uncharted, but chaos, bring it on. We love it. We're not going to let this fail. So we set up in his basement and on our Pentium 9, I think it was, and clicking away on net zero while the digital age was just coming around. But we started a drawing department in his basement in Madeira. And then we moved out of there. Literally, I think 3 months later, we finished his screen porch. And then we was like, we can't have meetings here because there's 4 kids running around. So we had a contractor, and contractors were our friends. We actually get along really well with contractors. So we leaned into them for work. They leaned into us for work. But we found a storefront in Oakley, which is a blue-collar sort of neighborhood. And we're like, how many architects want that blue-collar neighborhood? And we were like, that's perfect for us. We'll call ourselves drawing department. No one will know what that means or who that is. Well, great. That forces them to learn who we are and engage in us. So we opened drawing department in 2005, or Rob did, and then I joined up with him, and the rest has been magical. I mean, we've, over the course of almost 20 years now, we moved from that little storefront into a building that we remade kind of like this. And there's 16 of us there that ebb and flow throughout the year. But I think we've done 1,900 projects now we're a 16-person firm, but there was 2 of us. And a year later, there was 4 of us. Then there were 6 of us. So that's kind of how I got here was that. And the last 20 years has been just a blur. It's like nonstop. So.
Awesome. Great story again. Fantastic. Now, I think before we go any further, I think we all have to agree that you have both made it, okay? It doesn't mean it's the end, but you're there. And I think it's maybe a good time to talk about scaling and growth. You've both experienced that. You've alluded to that, but talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced as you've grown your business, success factors, some of the obstacles maybe you had to overcome. How did you make that work? Mike?
I would say challenges. So as myself and my 4 partners, kind of taking that leap to buy the business, we were all equal partners. So it took a lot of collaboration to move the business forward. And then I embrace having partners in a business. I embrace having partners on job sites because I think we end up with a better product. But that collaboration piece just further forced me to up my game because I have an idea about, hey, we have this little 2 guys making cabinets. Why don't we turn it into a business and we'll grow this business? And it forced me to really vet my ideas to my partners to get them to greenlight it and go. So I think the collaborative nature was a huge piece for me to engage the team because it wasn't just one person owns the whole thing, you're doing as you're told. It was really, getting that going was a lesson.
Like one of the things I've observed about your companies, the focus you all put on people and people development and attracting good workers and retaining them. I mean, could you talk a little bit about how that has worked for you and how you've evolved in that regard?
For me, the people are so important to what we do that I've had jobs over the years that I couldn't stand my boss. I didn't like where I was doing. And I always thought, well, if I end up in a position to work in a company, it's going to be a place that people want to come to work. And when you want to come to work, you get more done without even knowing you're working. And it's just a good environment. So that's been very front and center from the get-go, making people important, celebrated, and things like, the right people seem to fall into the businesses and the partnerships at the right time, because I think we're just open-minded to looking to what can this person grow into.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, Ron, same question for you. You've talked about how it was 2, then 4, then 6, and 20 years later, here you are. What kind of obstacles did you face, and what did you do to overcome them?
So the biggest obstacle that we face is exactly what we're talking about right now, which is scaling. When we set up the business, or we decided we're going to make the drawing department be a thing, we very intentionally set out to try to change the profession a bit, in the fact that, it takes 50 years normally to change construction and architecture because there's a lot of generational things that happen. So when we set up drawing department, we specifically called it drawing department so that it wasn't 3 names on the wall, but at the same time we were like, let's make this thing approachable. Let's make this not for just people that have deep pockets. So in order to sort of promote that, we don't have a hierarchy system where it's like there's a senior and an associate and you make sort of the levels of architect just by lasting. So we really went at this as it's a team approach. Everybody has different memories, they have different abilities, they have different historical sort of moments in their life where they can solve a problem differently. So our team, we really use the entire team. So for us, that means that we grow incredibly slow, and it's very calculated to maintain sort of the culture and how we deliver in our design process. It would be easy for us to get a lot of work and scale and hire a bunch of people and then fire them away when we didn't have that much work. But we've always been very calculated and slow to maintain our sort of process and our culture. So for us, it's like the scalability is the thing that we fight probably the most. That's the hardest in our profession, is how do you meet more people, do more work. Every year we meet 20% more people, but we still have people that are our friends that we do things for. So that's our biggest thing that we challenge ourselves on every single year. So scaling is kind of like we find people that add to the culture. We just don't find people that need a job. And so that's kind of different than where we all sort of came out of, and we said we want something different than that. So it's really, the team is the team. Like, I don't do all this stuff. It's a group of 14 fearless people that come at this with different ideas, and that has led to our success. Like, We don't market and we don't campaign for it. It just happens because people talk to people that talk to people. So hopefully that answers the question about scaling. We're very slow about it. We're very methodic about it. We meet new people every year. We might not be hiring, but if we find somebody that seems to want to play for the name on the front of the jersey than the back of the jersey, they're probably our horse. So that's what's led to our growth. We use our entire team, and that's different than anywhere else that I had kind of worked before drawing department. So
Good. That's a great answer. Very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the market we're in. What do you guys see as being maybe unique about it? And how has the commercial development scene evolved over the years?
So we're in this sleepy old river town world, and there's a lot of cities like this. I mean, you can go north of Dayton, they've got a little river. St. Louis, any cities are typically founded around transportation, and Cincinnati is an older city. So, and a lot of older structures are built. So a lot of construction in Cincinnati is repurposing, flipping a warehouse into offices or a warehouse into retail. Now it's a lot of activity in taking an existing structure, whether it's built in the 1880s or we just wrapped up the Macy's renovation. I think that was a 1970s, 80s building, and flipping that into apartments. So Cincinnati's kind of unique that there's a large stock of buildings, and the economy is still cruising along in Cincinnati. Remember Mark Twain said, you want to be in Cincinnati when the world ends because it happens 10 years later. In some areas, we're leading the curve in these repurposing versus some of the newer cities are dependent upon new development rolling in to create economic vitality. So we work here, Columbus, and it's different in Columbus. It's an entirely different market setup, different big businesses are moving in, data centers, and then we also, some of our businesses are further south. So yeah, I think since Cincinnati is kind of a unique place, I feel fortunate that it's here because here we kind of learn our craft, and then we go to these other places and teach them how to do it. So
That's the spirit. Ron, what do you think about our market here?
yeah, I agree that Cincinnati is very unique. And I think it has a lot to do with the geography of Cincinnati. I will tell you that the cultural diversity and the architectural diversity that seems to be here in the city, I would suggest is born in the tops and the bottoms, both here in Cincinnati and over in Kentucky. So you get a very heirloom quality neighborhood here or there, which leads to a great mix of different styles and types. And so it's an arts community too. It embraces all those things about architecture and craft and type and style sort of environments for houses or other buildings. So it's an Italian mix, it's a German mix, it's an Irish mix. It's such a melting pot of styles in that you can really ebb and flow with being very modern or being very traditional. And you can juxtapose those two things together. So it's very unique. It has, the target sort of moves and it changes depending on economy, depending on time of year and stuff like that. But that diversity, you don't find that everywhere. It feels very European in a way, but it's not. It's in the Midwest. And to your point, this was a spot that a lot of folks landed before they decided I'm either going west or I'm not. So the river has sort of set Cincinnati up on that edge of it for that reason. It's very diverse, and I think that is critical to the sort of commercial aspects of it or how things have changed over time. To answer that part of the question, over the last 25, 30 years, commercial development, I think, has changed here because of technology. Everyone carries around a computer in their pocket nowadays, so everything is instant or available. But therefore, the construction industry, the work industry, and the play industry, they're all commingling with one another. You live and you work and you play kind of in smaller environments, in smaller neighborhoods. So that has led to changes in sort of the commercial aspect of construction or leases or type of places that we're making these days. It's changing and it's evolving because of that technology and that availability of information. So
Good. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what's next, what's on the horizon for Huseman Group and Drawing Department. Any new directions you guys are seeing and Anything you're excited about?
We have a SSRG as the structural repair company, so there's a lot of activity, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi State, ton in Tennessee. So expanding what we have today is very in the overall strategic plans. But I'm always open to adding another company into the group. We've got a couple ideas in mind that we hope to launch or create or buy or something down the road, just to round out the skill set. I love controlling construction projects. So yeah, I think that's the future. And then, ultimately I'm 60, so turn the reins over other people down the road too, so.
Ron?
That's a tough question, a little bit.
Crystal ball.
Yeah, I would say if I have to cast it, I think that drawing department and the group of folks that works there, we represent sort of a mix because we do both residential and commercial, which led us kind of to the spot that we're in today. We were kind of uniquely qualified for that. I think those two things coming together, they inform one another. We get commercial spaces that have a residential touch. We have a residential space that's not afraid to use commercial materials. So where is the future? Like I said, I feel that work, play, live, they're all coming together because everything's so fast these days. And so a house becomes your office becomes your playground. They're coming in smaller wrappers, but they're becoming more manipulated or flexible. So I think that's like the future of design, is how can you still have a hierarchy of spaces or events that happen in a space, but have it be a shapeshifter. And we mess around with that all the time, culturally and psychologically, when we're talking about design. But I think that's kind of as culture is moving, without trend, that sort of thing. So
Talk a little bit about proud moments, something that, you're particularly proud of, or something where you feel like you've made a lasting impact, and the hope that your work, leaves on the community.
That's kind of twofold, because I'm very proud of the finished product that we get done. When we can walk around town and point to buildings we've worked on or repaired or put new life into, or like we got it done for the owner. I'm very happy and proud of the work, because it's amazing. Like I see Stanton Millworks will be doing Jeff Ruby's millwork and stuff for Children's Hospital, and then we're turning around chipping concrete in a parking garage for somebody, and we're solving everybody's problems just with different tools. So the accomplishment of the work's cool, but what really juices me every day is just that, like when you see a co-op get a job offer, they are just on cloud nine. Or when a project engineer becomes a project manager, they're just beaming. And I feel like we have enough mass now. We have a lot of systems and the right people targeting who's going to do well in our firm, that the thrill of their victories probably trumps most any of mine, just because it's so cool seeing, or if somebody's estimating a job and they bag a significant job, they are on cloud nine, and I just feel for them. I could do that all day long. So that's why that's probably it. Kind of a weird answer, but yeah.
yeah, I would say if I had to talk about proudest moments, most proud moment is probably after the last 20 years. I get to wake up every single day, and we get to work with my friends and do whatever we can dream up. I mean, that is huge. I mean, it's not work. I think also just very proud with all the people that we touched over the years, all the places we've been. We don't grandstand about it, we don't advertise it, but I mean, if I sit there and I think about all the people that we've messed with and rooted around in their heads and pulled on their heartstrings, it's magical how they all intertwine and how they know each other. So that's probably my most proud thing, but to really impact our city and create some public spaces and private spaces that you hear people talk about and they don't even know that you were there. That's huge. I mean, we want to leave sort of a lasting impression, but no fingerprints, right? So it's kind of like riding that edge. It's magical. It's unbelievable.
Awesome. Well, I think we might have time for a few questions. Bob Hoffer.
Our grandparents grew up in the urban core. That's where they raised their children. And then suburbs came along. But in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been such return to the urban core. I'd like to hear both your perspectives about that, because it's been absolutely transformational, not just for our community, but for our families as well.
Yes, I'm with you that I think cars came along and started destroying the urban core, and we need places to live, but it became subdivisions and cul-de-sacs, and the next thing you know, sidewalks are gone, and so we started losing that human connection, and I feel it is that, one, yes, we are moving back to urban core areas, or we're trying to create, the new version of an urban core is you take a cornfield, build apartments, put a theater in, and call it a lifestyle center. I mean, that's kind of the essence of it, that you're trying to get people connected and walking around, but the cities have the institutions that we all want to see and be around. You can't recreate this outside of this, and you can't walk around different newer areas and see something. So I'm really big into the urban core. I'm big into walkability. We did the Court Street project, where we kind of made that a very walkable plaza type area, multi-purpose, very people friendly. And I think when people feel safe walking around, then community evolves. So yeah, I'm all about the urban core. I dig that. Yeah.
Ron? I would say that, my answer probably stems back from when I decided when I was 6 that I wanted to be an architect. I grew up in a post-war subdivision by Ryan Homes. I raided their scrap lots to build clubhouses and whatnot. But it was a different time. Everybody wanted their own little piece of the world and be able to have the white picket fence. So the idea of family was changing. I think since that point, to your point about cars and travel, and there's sort of that new urbanism that comes in about walkability and being able to be with people in a neighborhood. Cincinnati sets itself up really well for that. With this heirloom collection of buildings in OTR, you can do that. You can remake that. In the, I think it was probably early 1990s, the urban core down there in OTR is got all of its teeth knocked out. No one's down there. It takes a couple projects that are a catalyst, a park, a restaurant that serves hot dogs, a restaurant that serves pizza, to bring people back down, and then it starts to change and it starts to evolve, and you parlay that into more things that serve the neighborhood, and not just tearing things down, but authenticity returns, right? Type and style. Let's save that building. Let's save that building. Put the teeth back on the street. Resurrect the facade, the storefront, the block, and then it just grows and it festers. So Cincinnati is unique like that, but I think that's also a reason why it's come back, because people are like, I want that authenticity. I don't want to have to cut my grass. I still want to be with people. I want to have neighbors. I want to belong to this place. It's just different. It's changed. So
it's a good way to close the program. I want to thank Mike Huseman and Ron Novak for being with us here this evening. Thank you so much.